Hello, this is the part two, a response to the title of the video produced by Jews for Jesus called That Jew Died for You. Now, I've been thinking about the title a lot. Obviously, they're aiming to try to convert the Jewish people to believe in Jesus. But I've been thinking about that title, That Jew Died for You. And I think, really, this is something not for Jewish people to think about, really for the church to think about. Because I was a Jewish believer in Jesus for 42 years, right? I attended lots of different churches, denominations, here in the United Kingdom. Right, let's go through them. I remember them all. Church of England, Baptist, Methodist, United Reform, Ecumenical, Evangelical, Charismatic. So I met a whole range of people. And this, what I'm talking about, leading up to, is, I suppose, anti-Semitism and the dislike of the Jews. And perhaps the question in your mind is how prevalent it is in the church. And why I'm thinking that that evangelical Christians need to think, Christians need to think about those words, that Jew died for you. I think, in my experience, long experience and reflections of these experiences, particularly now I'm old, I'm 60, I think that people disguise their prejudices very well. Since the Holocaust, the church has been obliged, for religious correctness, not to say anything publicly against the Jewish people, right? They have to watch the P's and Q's. Most ordinary church-going Christians, born again Christians, and the same with Catholics. Oh, I've been to a Catholic church as well. Yeah, Catholic church. Many have respect for Judaism, respect it. They see it as another religion, and they have respect for it. There are where the problems lie is often with those people that claim to love the Jews and claim to love Israel, because it's through them I've discovered that it's perhaps not quite what it appears. And people did used to say to me in my teens and early 20s that I was very gullible, and I used to say I'm not, but I think I was gullible. And when I look back at the people I've met, particularly missionaries, I'm not so sure there is a love for the Jewish people. Some missionaries, I just think it's a job. It's a job that they believe they've been called by God to tell the Jewish people about Jesus. But on reflection, I'm not so sure those people did like the Jews, inverted commas, very much. You have to remember, this is a thankless job. It's when you're a missionary. Nobody wants to see you. Nobody wants to talk to you. Jewish people don't want to talk to missionaries. They don't, then. But the most important thing is they're trying to get you converted. This is the main thing I'm getting at. If you're a missionary and you can't get people to believe what you believe, it must be very frustrating. It's like going door to door to sell double glazing, and nobody will buy you windows. Nobody will buy you windows. You have lots of nice conversations. You think you're about to get a sale, but they don't. And it must be very frustrating. And I think because perhaps when some missionaries does lead to a dislike of the Jewish people. I remember sitting next to one sort of well-known missionary, Jewish, a non-Jewish, missionary to the Jews, and I just got the feeling sitting next to her that she didn't like Jews, and I don't know where it came from. I think there's many people watching this video, perhaps of other races and that will get where I'm coming from, in that, if you're black, you can probably pick up when a white person, you can feel it if you sit next to them, you can feel the bad vibes coming from that white person, and you're getting the feeling that they don't really like black people. And probably people, perhaps Muslims will also be getting that people, perhaps they might be getting the vibe that they're not liked. And I was getting this vibe from this lady. You see, the Christians know Jesus is Jewish, but I don't think they know it on one level, but I don't think they know it on a deeper level. What I call the kishkis is, Yiddish, it's the intestines. Because I do honestly think there are some Christians, if they just really got it, that Jesus was Jewish, that they really suddenly realise that this man who they worship, because they worship him, you have to understand that, they worship Jesus. If they actually really got it, and it was like a light bulb moment, as you say, and they got it, that this person that they are worshipping is a Jew, I think they'd be horrified. And I think some people would be thinking to themselves, what bloody hell am I worshipping a Jew? And they wouldn't like it. They wouldn't like it. They wouldn't like it. That's been my impression, particularly amongst the hierarchy. If there's a problem, it's always with the people with authority, the elders, the pastors, the curates, the vicars, anybody with authority and power, lecturers in theological college. That's where there can be problems, that they're not liking the Jews. I studied theology, and one of the lecturers believed, he understood it, the Jews were responsible for the death of Jesus. They did kill him. After I left theological college, I did some research into the crucifixion, because I wanted to know, what's it like to be crucified? What happens to the body? Everything. How will the person feel? Because I wanted to understand the physiological, aspect, and how it could affect a person and everything. So I was studying all the Gospels, and I was also doing all the loads and loads of research. And this is before the internet. So I'd come to the end of my research because I couldn't get more information in those days. But I'd covered it thoroughly. And then I got a note in the post to say that there was a professor coming to the theological college to lecture actually on the subject of the crucifixion. So I thought, oh, great, I'm going to get something out of this now. So I went with my notepad, eager to learn. And what came across is she was using Mark's Gospel basically to say, in a nutshell, God wants nothing to do with the Jewish people. They killed Jesus. And she was approaching the Gospels and reading things into the text that simply weren't there. She again was approaching, as I've said in other videos, a bit like poetry. It's like she's reading things into it about what it means to her. And this is a theologian who writes books, giving a public lecture. It was an anti-Semitic presentation. Of course, this is decades ago, so the minutiae of what she was saying I can't quite remember, but it was anti-Semitic, I can tell you that. The reason why it got dark at midday, Jesus on the cross, was because God wants nothing to, he was angry with the Jewish people, he wants nothing to do with the Jewish people, and all of that. So in the lecture hall were all the professors from the college, many of the students from the college. You would also get some visitors here and there being invited. I was there. So I waited till the end for the appropriate time. Any questions? And so I got up and I challenged her basically on this anti-Semitic presentation. And then she started to ridicule me. And what happened was, shocked me, was the whole of the auditorium burst into fits of laughter. And it was like mocking. And the lecturers in the college who knew me and knew I was Jewish turned round and were just like sneering. This kind of etiquette in this college was, I'd never seen it before, because it was a very polite, respectful college. This behaviour was just like, what's caused this? So I refused to stand down. I thought, I'm not going to be. She's feeling threatened, because I trained in assertiveness, and I knew why she was putting me down, because she felt threatened. So she had to mock and ridicule me to get me to sit down, because I was showing her up for what she said. So she was mocking me, and they were all laughing at me, turning and laughing at me. So I didn't. I thought, I'm not going to sit down. I know what you're doing, woman, lady. And I continued. And then I remember two of my lecturers who knew I was Jewish, turned round and they were sneering at me. And in that moment, I realised they don't like the Jews. They don't like the Jews. I'm not saying every Christian. No. I am not saying that. I'm just saying I realised in that moment they don't like the Jews. They don't like the Jews. And one of those people that turned round was that lecturer who said the Jews are responsible for the death of Jesus. They killed Jesus. And that wasn't, how many years ago? 30 years ago or something. That was. So if anybody should be reflecting on those words of Jesus on the video, that Jew died for you. It's not the Jewish people, because he's not the Messiah. No. It's the Christian who believes it. It's the Christian who believes in the New Testament and believes in Jesus. They're the ones who should be thinking about that phrase of in the video of that Jew died for you. I remember at the Church of England church I went to, I was going up to read from the Bible, and the vicar then, who is now passed away, introduced me, Deborah, who used to be Jewish. So a lady at the front of the church, who was very, very outspoken, very formidable middle-aged woman, you sort of, she could be quite sort of frightening sometimes. But her heart was in the right place. She was very outspoken. And she shouted out in the loudest voice you can imagine, Deborah is Jewish. Jesus is her Jewish Messiah. Right? You couldn't hear a pin drop in this packed church of a Sunday morning. So that was the Church of England vicar reprimanded by one of the members of the congregation. So I'm thinking, have to think quick, because I'm supposed to be going up now to read from the Bible. Should I say anything? And the thought that crossed my mind was, I remember I'd been a believer for many years by that time, was this will only, if I say anything, this is going to make matters worse, because the reaction could well be from some members of the congregation, these bloody Jews. This is what you happen when you have Jews in the church. So if I had said something, I think some of the congregation would have responded like that. And I didn't think it would achieve anything for me to say anything. And I realised that lady at the front, who was not Jewish, that was the best person to speak out, because, if anything needs to be said, it has to come from a non-Jew to the other Christian, not from a Jewish person in the church. Because if a Jewish person complains, they don't like it and they see you as a troublemaker. Those bloody Jews. That's what some of them are thinking to themselves. So this is like an appeal to non-Jewish Christians. If you hear something anti-Semitic, anything like that, you must speak out, because they will receive it better from you, a non-Jewish Christian, than a Jewish believer in Jesus. It has to come from the non-Jewish Christian to speak up against things that they hear that are not right. Anything that you hear that's, the connection to the Jewish people, you must speak out. Because if a Jewish person will speak out, they'll get annoyed in their minds. They'll be all sweetness and light and polite because they're very good at that. But they'll be thinking to themselves, those bloody Jews. You could have 100 Muslims convert and come to a church, but 10 Jews, and to be honest, the hierarchy would be worried. Though I think they do feel threatened a bit by Jewish people. And I think there's a lot of things going on in the background. I think particularly the hierarchy. I think probably they realise that the scriptures, the Hebrew Bible is our scriptures. We are the people of the book, and I think they feel intimidated. And I think they're worried that they'll be shown up in some way, and they're not willing to learn from Jewish people, from Jewish believers, because this is what I found: they don't want to learn from Jewish believers. No. And this is what I have found. I remember doing Pesach right in my home, and I invited 2 other Jewish believers. So I had this idea of making my own matzah. Now, strictly speaking, I know it's not really kosher for Passover. I know that. But I just thought, wouldn't it be great if I could do it? So I was very much into bread making. I thought, I'd try and do a matzah. My own matzah. Anyway, I did it, and it was actually very nice. But it's not strictly kosher for Passover. I wouldn't take it, if I was going to, a Jewish home. I wouldn't take it. But this is getting into the spirit of Pesach, you see. So it's homemade. So I invite somebody from the church who claims to, is mad on Israel, fanatic on Israel. So I invite her, thinking, well, she'll find this interesting. I'm doing this, the whole thing in my home and everything. And her response, this is what they can be like. I know all about it. I don't need to come to you. No, I don't need to come. She said, I've already been to a church demonstration. I know all about Passover. I said, but it's not quite the same, because this isn't coming to a Jewish home, and it's, it's a Jewish home. No, I don't need to, It's totally different going to a demonstration than to go to somebody's home. You could go to a demonstration of Indian cookery, but to be invited by an Indian family to their home to have a meal, fantastic, because then you experience the whole thing of the family, and you get the home feeling of it, the home cooking and everything. But it's like, oh no, I don't need to learn anything from you, And again, she was, I regarded her as a bit of a bitch, to be honest. She was a wonderful, wonderful mother. There was no doubt about that. And I do think of her as a lovely Christian. But she was a bitch to me. She was a cow to me. She wasn't very nice to me. She was mean to me. But this is a person who claims to love the Jewish, claims to love Israel. But then, you see, I was hesitating now, because I was going to say she loves the Jewish people. I'm not so sure. But you see, just because they love Israel, it doesn't necessarily mean they are positive towards Jewish people. I used to go to somebody's house for praying for the Jews. Now, the lady completely ignored me when I arrived, and so did other people in the room. So I'm thinking, trying to give the benefit of the doubt. Well, they're probably busy, you know, when people start yakking, talking, they kind of, they don't mean to ignore somebody. It's just they get so wrapped up. Yak, 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 yak. But I was being ignored, so I just thought, oh, they don't mean it. They're not trying to ignore me. They're just forgetting I'm there because they're so busy talking. But then I realised, yes, they are ignoring me. They are ignoring me. They are ignoring me. And it's because I was Jewish. Now, this lady who, every time I would go, this lady, I would take her something, because it was, this prayer meeting was held in a home, so I'd always take her something, some biscuits or a jar of coffee or something. You know how you do when you go to somebody's home. And she, when I opened the door, she'd look at me as if to say, ooh, 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 ooh. It was obvious. I knew right from the start she couldn't stand me. But I assumed she couldn't stand me because it was me. And I thought, well, she doesn't have to like me. It's all right, you know. You can't expect everybody in the world to like you. So I took it on the chin. I thought, I'm not going to stop going just because she doesn't like me. She's giving, every time you arrive, a filthy, disgusting look. Ugh, ugh, what's this bit of shit on my doorstep arrived? And then it took a few years, and I bumped into her in the street, and again she was looking at me again with that, ooh, ooh, Lily. And then it suddenly dropped, the penny dropped. She doesn't like Jews. She doesn't like Jews. So you're thinking, there, this can't be it. Why is she praying for the Jewish people if she doesn't like Jews? You might pray for ISIS because you want them to come to their senses and stop killing people and torturing people and everything. You don't like ISIS, but you're still praying for them. And in the same way, some Christians can pray for Israel and pray for the Jewish people, but they don't actually like them. And that because you can't get your head around it, I'm telling you. So if anybody should be thinking that Jew died for you, the person you're worshipping and praising every week in church is actually Jewish. But how would she cope with this lady who clearly despises the Jews? Martin Luther, the anti-Semite, was worshipping a Jew. This is where it gets a bit crazy. And you think, I can't get my head around this. The Prayer for Israel meeting, it was very obvious right from the start. The non-Jewish lady running it, in charge of it, did not want me there. And I would have been the only Jewish person present. No, there's nobody in the group can give you a lift. No, we can't, no. Well, you know, because she lived quite a way, and, you know, it was outside Manchester, and it was one of these, you'd have to get a lift. And I couldn't afford a taxi. It cost an arm and a leg to get a taxi. No, there's nobody can give you a lift, no. And I was, so in those days, it was like, I'm going to find a way to get to that meeting. Because I want to pray for Israel. No, there's no. It turned out, this is where it gets shocking. I eventually found out, after a lot of inquiries, that one of the people attending that meeting every single week without fail, every month, who she knew, it's only a small group, lived round the corner from me. Now that leader of that Prayer for Israel knew I was Jewish, knew where I lived, knew where the other person lived, but they didn't want me there. They don't want you there. She didn't want me there. But I thought, I have a right to be. That's the way I was thinking in those. I wouldn't go now. I wouldn't have go. I mean, you know, no way. But I went, and again I felt very much not welcomed and not wanted. They were going through the rigmarole of being polite. Oh, yes, we've got Deborah here and all that, you know. But the vibes that were coming across from people and just not talking to me at all, just being ignored. And I was just like very uncomfortable. And it was quite obvious they don't actually like Jewish people. Some of these people, not all of them, but don't actually like the Jewish people. And it's very hard to get your head around it. And I remember we were just having a laugh and joke as I was leaving this Prayer for Israel meeting about people not being perfect. And we just say, oh, nobody's perfect. All that. It was all very light-hearted banter. And you know what she did? She turned to me, and you know what she said to me? I couldn't believe my ears. She said, and you Jews aren't perfect. In that tone of voice. And I was so shocked. I thought, what is going through this woman's head? This is a woman ahead running this Prayer for Israel group, coming out with a remark like that, and looking at me, you know, that look. Ugh, ugh, the Jew, right? What is going on there? Now, I knew another Jewish believer. She was a middle-aged woman, because then I was, you know, young, and she was like how I am, about 60, 65. She was housebound. She was a Jewish believer in Jesus. Her husband had passed away. She was in a lot of pain, housebound, very unwell. She was dependent on this Prayer for Israel lady to do bits and bobs and shopping and this and that and the other. But she was having problems with her. What started to happen was she started to copy her. So if the Jewish woman bought a new blouse, the Christian lady would say, where did you get that blouse? And then she'd go and buy the same blouse and wear it. This is not uncommon. Women do this. It's very common. Women do like to say, where'd you get that from? They rush out and buy it. The problem is it got a bit weird, because it started to be every single thing she bought. Everything, anything's in the kitchen, tea towels, a teapot, anything she would buy, she would say, where did you buy it? And she would buy it. The same handbag, the same shoes, and we're going into single white female scenario, aren't we? But it was, and she actually said to me, this is getting very spooky. I don't understand what's going on here. She's copying everything. Everything. And like she's wanting, it's almost what's going on there. Is she wanting to be Jewish, so she's copying this Jewish lady? We don't know. It's very strange. And I've found this quite a bit with these people that claim to love the Jews and things. I think, and I just want to reiterate, there are lots of nice, decent, lovely evangelical Christians that are not anti-Semitic. No, 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 no. I really want to reiterate, but I have come across so much, you know, upsetting incidents. They sort of, they love the Jew, but they also hate the Jew. They're jealous of the Jew, but they also criticise the Jew quite nastily. They envy them, but they pour contempt on them. They're very, very mixed up. They're very, very mixed up. And that is something I have noticed. That is something I have noticed. I had so many problems. The problems I had often were with the people that claimed to love the Jews. They the ones would distress me. They the ones would upset me. I was permanently in the state of distress when I was in the church because of these people. Because you have one incident, you're trying to get over that, and then something else happens, and then you're distressed again. They're very nice with Jewish people who don't believe in Jesus. They become like angels. I mean, I knew a lady, again, she's going to a synagogue every week. She was going to the synagogue every week. She was what you would call a middle-aged, stereotype classic spinster. Right? Rather dowdily dressed, you know. No, I don't mean to be mean, but I'm emphasising this because she wouldn't appear threatening. I mean, most rabbis would just look at her and say, oh, she's harmless, you know, because she doesn't look threatening. She doesn't look threatening. There's things threatening about her to mean anything, you know. So she's going to shul every week. She went to my shul, Orthodox shul, where I used to go to as a child. Now, she's going there. She's sitting in the ladies' gallery, and the purpose is, you have to get this, is to befriend, to get friendly with the women. Now, of course, they're going to perhaps be a bit wary because they can see she's not Jewish, she's, Christian, to be careful. But of course, because she seems so harmless, they kind of feel sorry for her and they invite her for a meal and things like that. This is where it can get dangerous, because you have to understand that woman was going to shul, the synagogue, with the purpose to share Jesus as the Messiah with the ladies. That's what it was all about. So she also joined a Jewish museum as a volunteer. And again, it's the same purpose, developing relationships and waiting for the opportunity where she can tell them about Jesus, who she believes is the Messiah. Now, she was all sweetness and light with these ladies. It was sweetness. Oh, Mrs. Cohen's got a cold. We must have a prayer meeting for her. She's got a cold. Poor Mrs. Cohen, Mrs. Cohen. Right, I could drop down dead with emphysema, and I don't think she'll be bothered, really. She was very, very mean to me. She had a nasty mouth. And there certainly wasn't any, and she wasn't nice to me. She used to upset me and distress me. She had as I say, a nasty mouth on her. But as soon as she comes across a Jewish person, doesn't believe in Jesus, they're suddenly angels of light. It's just incredible, the behaviour changes. You wouldn't believe it. I remember another man, again they claimed to love the Jews, and again he knew I was a Jewish believer in Jesus, and again it wasn't very nice, the things he used to come out with. It was upsetting. But then I would see him talking to a Jewish person, a Jewish man who doesn't believe in Jesus, and he transforms. He transforms his behaviour. He's a different man, totally different. So I would suggest that perhaps the impressions you're getting of some of these people that claim to love the Jews, perhaps you're not really seeing the whole of the person. I've seen them. And I know that these people are quite complex. They are obsessed with Israel. There's no doubt about it. It's a terribly emotional thing, and it's going. I'm crying. It's very, 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 very over the top. It's not like being a Zionist, It's terribly emotional. I found that these people that claim to love the Jews, the ones that claim to love the Jews, had no interest at all in my Jewish life. They never showed an interest in my background. And these were people that were supposedly friends. All these people I knew, they never asked about my upbringing. They didn't ask about what school I went to. I mean, I went to a Jewish school. They had no interest in me. There were no interest in me. And I thought, this is odd, because these people claim to love the Jews. They're being called to share their faith with Jewish people, and yet they have no interest in me, and no interest in learning about Judaism from me. This is what's so extraordinary. One of the things is they don't want to admit, these people don't want to admit that they don't know everything about Judaism. They like to think they know everything about Judaism. And this is possibly why they would never ask me anything, because possibly it's pride, maybe. They don't want to appear that they don't know something about Judaism. So they kind of give the impression, I know it, I don't need to come for you for Passover, I know all about Passover. You do get this attitude quite a bit. There's no interest. All my years, I never had anybody ask about my back. There's no interest. Very little interest. People are just not interested. So the people that claim to love the Jews and have a calling have no interest in my background, my upbringing, what's it like going to a Jewish school, but nothing. And I remember bringing up with these certain people who I did regard was kind of friends, but obviously they weren't. And thinking, if I start to talk about my going to a Jewish school, that they will ask questions and, want to know about it. Nothing. They're not interested. They are so not interested. They were not interested in anything about me. Nothing. They believe they know everything that there is to know, and they don't want to admit, they don't want to learn from a Jewish believer about the Jewish religion. They will ask the Christian missionary, and in fact there was at one prayer meeting I was there, they knew I was Jewish, just a few ladies. The missionary turns up who's not Jewish. They turn to me and ask me a question about Judaism, which is very, very rare, very rare. I answer it. Do you know what they did then? They asked the missionary, the non-Jew, Jewish missionary, exactly the same question that they just asked me. I'd answered the question and I was there, and they asked the question again to the missionary. They didn't believe my reply. They didn't believe the reply I'd given them. I mean, it's so bad-mannered. I mean, even if I thought I was an idiot or something, you don't do that. It was so humiliating. And I said, why are you asking the missionary? I've just answered this question for you. I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish. I've answered your question. Why are you asking this non-Jewish missionary the same question? And they look at you. Nothing's registering. Nothing's going in what I've just said. And I'm thinking, what is it about these people? What is it about these people? This is what I had to contend with. Now, I went to a Bible study, and a tape was played, you know, on a cassette recorder, the whirling round, if you can remember those. There was a slotted or something, all very old-fashioned. And it was anti-Semitic. It was a Christian preacher telling anti-Semitic jokes. Now, there were two men there, young men, educated men. They knew I was Jewish. I was sitting there, and they were laughing and laughing and laughing at these anti-Semitic jokes. It was really awful. So I said, I'm Jewish. Why are you laughing at these anti-Semitic jokes? And they're saying, oh, you're too touchy. You're too touchy. This is how they respond. They don't know. They don't understand anti-Semitism. So I left the church. Now the vicar, who didn't think I was Jewish at the Church of England, who didn't think I was Jewish, introduced me, Devorah, who isn't Jewish now, she's a Christian. He visited me at home out of the blue, always out of the blue. And I tell him what happened about at that Bible study, the playing of anti-Semitic tape, and how these young men were laughing, knowing I was Jewish. He said absolutely nothing. 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 He didn't apologise. He didn't say, oh, I'm so sorry, this is terrible. We want nothing to do with anti-Semitism in this church. Tell me the names of these young men. I will have a word with them. I'm not going to tolerate this in the church. He is the vicar. He is the vicar. He said absolutely nothing. I was disgusted, absolutely disgusted. So you're thinking, well, did you complain? I didn't complain. You know why? Because it won't be any different with the higher beings in the Church of England. It's no different. I knew that. You complain about something like that and they'll say, these bloody Jews. This is what happens when you have the Jews in. There's no way, there's no point. There's no point. They'll be smiling at you, but in there they're thinking these bloody Jews. And I know this. And I know many Christians won't like hearing this. And I'll say, no, that's not true. Yes, it is true. It is true. It is true. I was a Jewish believer for 42 years. I've lived with you. I know what you like. I know what you like. I know what you like. I know how you disguise your prejudices. I'm not an idiot. I'm not an idiot. So if all these people meditated on those words, that Jew died for you. They're worshipping Jesus, they're praising Jesus. But if they really took on board that person they're worshipping and believing in is actually Jewish, Would they want to be a Christian? Possibly not. Possibly not. And would they want to worship him if they realised he was Jewish? So as far as I'm concerned, the title of that video should be meditated by these people. I want to reiterate, I know there's lots of Christians out there not anti-Semitic, condemn it, want nothing to do with it. That many Christians have a genuine respect for Judaism, respect for everything, but there is no doubt there's still a problem there. There's still a problem there. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg that I told you. It's just so many unpleasant incidents. And can you imagine living in an environment like that? They're reading that New Testament. Can you imagine buying a book like Dan Brown? Paperback, right? I like Dan Brown. You read it, then you read it again, then you read it again, and you're doing this. You read it, rereading, over and over again for your whole of your life. They're reading that New Testament. They are immersed in that story that is so negative about the Jewish people. That all of the narrative in the New Testament is negative about the Jewish people. There is nothing positive there. I stopped reading the New Testament a number of years ago. Before, I still maintained my faith that Jesus was Messiah, but I stopped reading it. I thought, I'm sick of this book. I hate it. I'm not going to read it anymore. I am not going to read it anymore. As far as I'm concerned, the New Testament is an anti-Semitic book. I would happily burn it. I remember a year ago seeing in Israel a Jewish boy burning the New Testament, burning it, and I don't know if I could do that. I don't like it. I don't like this New Testament, but I don't know if I'd burn it. It's like, would I burn it? Now I would. I would burn it. Because, in my view, it's all responsible. It's all responsible for the negativity, the anti-Semitism, everything. There is so much from these people that claim to love the Jews. I don't think they have a proper respect for the rabbis. They have contempt for the Talmud, that is the oral law. They have a total contempt for it. Absolutely contempt. They have a contempt because it's the Jewish mind, it's the Jewish thought. Christianity hates thought. You don't use your brain when you interact with the scriptures, because they associate that with the Jews, those Jews, the Talmud. And this is, it is this contempt. There is this thing going round, you hear the Jewish conspiracy. This, the rabbis are against Jesus. There's been a conspiracy over the last 2,000 years to hide Jesus the Messiah from the Jewish people. I believe that. And this is what an awful lot of Jewish believers in Jesus believe, and a lot of evangelical Christians believe this, the Jewish conspiracy. But I've been thinking about this recently, and I realised the idea of a Jewish conspiracy against Jesus is no different to the anti-Semitic idea that the Jews control the world, the Jews control the money, the Jews control the banks, the Jewish conspiracy. It's really rooted, it's anti-Semitic, it's rooted in hatred. But you see, this is the problem, you see. So I am ashamed and embarrassed, but this is what happens. So you get Jewish people then, because they're converted to another religion, they take on board everything. Now, we want to think about this word convert, because some Jewish believers in Jesus are saying, we're not converting, we're still Jewish. Of course you're still Jewish. You could bow down to an idol. You're still Jewish in God's sight. You're just not behaving as a Jew should be behaving. That's what it is. You're still a Jew, but you're not behaving as a Jew should behave, right? In God, as far as God is concerned, everything. And what Christianity does, as I've observed, it's turning the Jewish believers in some ways against their own people. I heard a missionary on YouTube who was Jewish. You have to get this. This is somebody who used to be one of the heads of Jews for Jesus, talking with an Orthodox rabbi, and he said this to the rabbi: I am proud to be associated with the church. I am proud to be associated with the church. I was quite shocked at that, because I'm not. I wasn't. I heard this, a few years ago. His allegiance is to the Christian church. And when he was talking about the synagogue and his upbringing, when it got to the synagogue and Judaism, his mouth went down, and I could see it was a look of contempt. There was a slight look of contempt for his own people. Not very good. And what the awful thing about Christianity is that it's taking Jewish people, they're being deprogrammed, they're being programmed, drip by drip effect. It's changing the way you think. You're still circumcised for the boys, you're still circumcised, you still eat bagels, you still like chopped liver, but in here you transformed your mindset into that of a Christian. So you're thinking like a Christian. You're thinking, yes, there is a Jewish conspiracy against Jesus. The rabbis are against Jesus. And so it can get the Jewish believer being antagonistic to their own people, in somewhere in the mind. And this is the horrible thing about it. This is the horrible thing about it. You hear this, I love the Jewish people every other you just get sick and tired of it. Because it doesn't mean anything to me. You know why it doesn't mean anything to me? Because of all that I've just told you now. You see, at the end of the day, it's how you treat people. It's how you talk to people. It's how you look at people. If you talk to people with disrespect, if you look at them with sneering and with contempt, if you treat them with contempt, if you look at them with contempt, if you do all that, then it means nothing to me, this love business. I don't know. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know what they're talking about. All I know is they believe Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, and they want the Jewish people to believe in him. Right? And that is from a sincere position of their faith. They believe he is the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah. So they feel they have to tell the Jewish people. They feel the rabbis are against Jesus, the Jewish conspiracy against Jesus. And it's up to them, the Christian, to go in and tell them, the Jews, this is your Messiah, this is your Messiah. But they only love the non-Jewish person who doesn't believe in Jesus. Moshe Rosen, who is head of leader of Jews for Jesus, the big macher that set it up, he's passed away now. I remember decades ago reading his wife an article, and she said the thing is with these Christians is they're obsessed with Israel, but they don't really They don't really love the Jewish people in terms of the way they treat them and everything. In terms of, I think she was talking, possibly she was perhaps talking from experience. In other words, she was probably talking about Jewish believers in Jesus. In other words, and I identified with that. I didn't feel when I was in the church I was supported by these, I call them the Jew lovers, question mark. I didn't feel I had an ally. For me to be in the church is like living with the enemy. But the problem is you think you know who the enemy is. And then you find out, oh no, it's not. Oh, well, maybe it still is, but maybe that person over there I thought was positive towards the Jews can't stand them. And so I felt very insecure, and I didn't feel safe as a Jew. I just felt, who is it? It's like living in Nazi Germany. Who can I trust? Who really is positive about the Jewish people? But as I said, I want to reiterate, there are many Christians very positive, not anti-Semitic. You know, I mean, you know, 42 years, I think of one Christian lady. She stands out in my mind. Not Jewish, not evangelical. This was an ecumenical church, but she had great respect for Judaism. Great respect. Great respect. Enormous respect, and she would be the kind of person that would speak out against anti-Semitism. If she heard anything, she'd be speaking out. Anything, a hint of it in the church, and she would be saying something. But I never felt supported. I do remember sitting next to one of these ladies that claims to love the Jews, Jew lovers, prays for the Jewish people, and the one with the nasty mouth. I remember sitting there and feeling so sad because she always attacked me. She had a foul mouth, she was nasty to me, quite vicious, the things she would say, attacking, criticising me. But sweetness and light when she met a non-Jewish person who didn't believe in Jesus because she was going to the synagogue, you know, hoping to develop a relationship so she could share Jesus. But I remember sitting there next to her and I thought, what a shame we can't be friends. Here am I, I'm on my own. No, there's hundreds and hundreds of people in this church and I'm the only Jewish person. And she claims to love the Jews and she's so mean to me. What happened, I had to leave a job. It was very distressing circumstances. It was a whole story to it. It was very, very upsetting. And I would have liked to have told her about what had happened because it was very, very upsetting. I knew I couldn't. As soon as she found out I'd left the job, she started attacking me and being nasty. Of course, there was a very good reason, but I knew she wouldn't listen. She wouldn't understand. She had a vicious mouth on her. But it's amazing how she'd be transformed with a Jewish person who didn't believe in Jesus. She suddenly became the most understanding person on the planet. So sympathetic. So the whole mindset changes. And it's very, very lonely. It's very, very lonely. And I felt lonely and unsafe, and but I stuck it out. I stuck it out. I stuck it out. I stuck it out. And so after 42 years, I re-examined my faith and looked at it from a Jewish perspective through going on to Jews for Judaism and Outreach Judaism. And I came to the conclusion after months of study, there was no basis to this faith. And all these years I'd been in the church, you know, thinking, what was all that about? I had to go through. But when I think about it, what I was going through all those years was anti-Semitism. It was all anti-Semitism. That was what all the distress was about. I was sexually assaulted by a Church of England vicar in my own home. who used to be a missionary to the Jews. Don't you think he should have reflected on the fact that that Jew died for you? But when it happened, the assault in my home, I felt there was so much hatred. And on reflection now, as a much older woman, I now realise possibly he had a hatred of the Jews. And I know you say, well, how can that be? He was a missionary to the Jews. I know how that can be because I've lived with these people. I've had so much contact with them, and I realise that people are complex and multi-layered, and the behaviours and the views can contradict themselves. And you don't know a person as much as you think you know them, and that people have different layers to you, and it can take a long time for the layers to be revealed, and then you're just shocked. You can't believe it. No, you would have put your hand on your heart. You would have put a hand on your Bible and said, no, that person is not anti-Semitic. And then you find they are. So to conclude, in my view, it is the church, it is Christians, it is the people that claim to love the Jews, all of these people that should be reflecting on those words that Jew died for you. You believe that Jesus is the Messiah. You believe he's Jewish. You believe he's done all this for you, so you could have your sins forgiven and a place in heaven. You believe all this, but do you realise that from your belief system, this belief system that you have is based on a Jew? And do you realise that as far as you're concerned, when you get to heaven, you'll have to bow to a Jew? And how do you feel about that? Because I suspect there'll be many Christians out there who'll be horrified. What, I've got to bow to a Jew? Oh, I didn't realise that. If I'd known that, I wouldn't have had anything to do with Christianity. I didn't realise I'd have to bow to a Jew. I hope you found this interesting. I'm sorry if I've gone on too long. And I hope it makes you think. I hope it makes you think. I've tried to be fair and accurate and to not demonise all Christians, because this is not how the world works. We all know this. I've tried to be fair, and I hope it's food for thought, and that you've got something from this video. And I thank you for your time, because it's a long time to listen. I do thank you for listening, and if you can pass this video on to somebody who you think might be a bit anti-Semitic, if you've got the courage to retweet it to somebody who you think perhaps needs challenging on their views. Make them think. And again, I thank you for listening.